I am Ali Kravitz, aka the Bronx Witch. I am the founder and owner of Witchwork, the only co-working space for spiritual practitioners in New York City. And I'm the CEO of BetterWitch Coaching, a class and coaching platform that helps baby witches to become better witches with classes, coaching, and podcast episodes on topics ranging from spirituality to spiritual entrepreneurship. And today we are going to be talking about covering your spiritual you know what in these entrepreneurial streets, okay? And in case you're wondering where I am broadcasting from, I am here at Witchwork in the relaxed room. And right now you are getting a glimpse into life in the bunker, which is our virtual stronghold for spiritual entrepreneurs. Every week I go live for group coaching sessions and we tackle an important topic in your journey of building your spiritual business. And sometimes I share clips of that with the YouTube world. So if you want to get into the bunker and take advantage of all that is in there, meet the 85 or 86 other spiritual entrepreneurs in that space, then you can definitely do that. And the link to join the bunker is in the description. I'll also leave it down in the comments. Joining the bunker is free for the first 7 days. So definitely log in, look around, take advantage of everything that is in that space, and then decide if you want to stick around and continue to be a part of the community. Today, we are talking about a not so exciting topic. I know we're going to talk about insurance, waivers, and terms and conditions, but it's always the really boring, not interesting stuff that is the most important when you are building a business. You are working really, really hard to bring your gift to the world and to build wealth for yourself and for your family and your communities. And one of the worst things that could happen after you put in all that work is to see it all wiped away because of a lawsuit or because of a mistake or an accusation that you have to fight. So there are some important tools that you can put into place to prevent this from happening, as well as some things that you want to know and have so that if they do happen, you are covered and protected, especially financially. I want to share something with you guys before we get into today's topic. It's not my usual. We don't usually talk about books necessarily in the weekly refuels, though we do share our book recommendations in the recommendation space in our discussion feed. But I am reading the most phenomenal book, okay? It's called Regenerative Business by Samantha Garcia. I am absolutely blown away. This might be the best business book I have ever read. And of course, it is written by a witch for witches in business, which is not a common topic and perspective. And what Samantha has done with this book is basically connect the practices of regenerative agriculture to how we can be running our businesses. And it's just really, really blown me away. So I wanted to share a really short little quote that I think is important for all of us right now. We are going through some really transformational times. And something that I've been saying ever since our election here in the US is that money is not the problem. And spiritual practitioners have always been kind of anti-money. And money is not our problem. Money is not the enemy. It's not evil. It's not corrupt. It doesn't do anything. It's paper and coins. The problem is that the bad guys have most of the money. That is the problem. And sorry, it's super windy today. And I want to see that changed. That's my ultimate mission for helping other practitioners with their businesses. It's to see more people that care about others, that want to heal the world in a position of power where they can actually do that. And money is how we get into those positions of power and influence. And Samantha says, when you build wealth, you're able to be a part of the conversation on a different level. You aren't just a person on the sidelines hurling insults at the quote, greedy fuckers, quote. You're at the table What will your business success lead to? What will your wealth unlock access to? What legacy will you leave? So, talking about wealth as spiritual practitioners is really important. Building it and protecting it is important because having it puts us into the room with the folks that are making decisions about what this world is going to look like. And we need more people like us in those rooms. So, let's talk about protecting the wealth that you are building with your spiritual business. I'm going to cover 3 topics and give us some general pointers that you want to know in each. Specifically, we're going to talk about insurance, we're going to talk about waivers, and we're going to talk about terms and conditions. Okay? So I've got my notes here. Let's start with talking about insurance because I'm certain that if you are a tarot reader, you make crystal jewelry, you are doing virtual Reiki sessions, you are not thinking about insurance. That's something that you probably think doesn't apply to you, but it absolutely 100% does apply to you. And what insurance does, just basically just what is insurance, regardless of the type that you have. Insurance is basically a policy of protection. You pay an insurance provider a monthly amount, and they will cover you up to a certain amount in exchange. That's pretty much the easiest way to describe it. So, when you are a practitioner, the question to ask yourself is, could I suffer any losses or damage, or could I cause any losses or damage to someone else? And the answer to that is almost always going to be yes. So, some type of insurance coverage is a good idea, really, no matter what it is that you do. Now, obviously, you're investing money to grow your business. So, taking on the cost of a monthly insurance policy might not seem very appealing. But it's important to understand that there could be really high costs involved with protecting yourself from a lawsuit, or covering someone's expenses, or covering your own expenses if somebody reneges on a contract or something like that. And insurance is there to basically provide financially in the event that those things happen. So this is a protective measure. It's not preventative. It won't stop anybody from going after you. It won't stop anybody from, defaulting on a contract or costing you money. But it is there to cover you in the event that that happens. When we talk about waivers and terms and conditions, we'll be talking more about preventing these things from happening in the first place. But covering yourself is super important. So there's 2 types of insurance that you're going to want to know about and that I want you to look into. The first is for my retail witches, my product makers, anyone who has a physical location. Certainly, you are going to be looking into some general property insurance. And what you're looking for is insurance that covers either your space and or yourself and or your products and or your customers, etc. It's going to depend on the setup of your space, the setup of your business, what you're making, where you're keeping everything, etc. But there are general policies that basically cover products and the people that are interacting in the spaces where the products are held. So, for example, I have a physical location here, Witchwork, our co-working space, and I have general property insurance in this space. And what that means is if somebody were to slip, trip, or fall and sustain a medical issue that they felt I was responsible for, my insurance would cover the cost of their medical treatments and, basically settling the situation. My insurance policy would also cover the products that I have in the space. I make candles, I make teas. We no longer do in-person retail, but for a while we had books and crystals and all kinds of things, thousands of dollars worth of stuff. If there were to be God forbid, a fire or a flood or a burglary, my insurance would cover me up to a certain amount to help me replace those things and repair any damage that had occurred. So if you have opened up a storefront or you have a kiosk in the mall or you are vending and you're carrying your products back and forth, etc., there are different insurance policies that would cover your products. My insurance policy also covers the people that are in it, the slips, trips, and falls. So those insurance policies might also extend to you and to the people that are handling your products, etc. So there are different policies out there, too many to cover because each insurance company also has like their own variations on these policies, etc. But typically these are going to fall under the umbrella of some type of a general property insurance policy. I was watching, I was on Instagram, and you guys might be familiar with Baddies and Budgets. Super, super dope company that makes all of these great tools for saving money. You know, like those binders with like the 100 envelope challenge type thing. I got one of those. Oh, hold on just one second. Yay! We got a drop off of goodies that are going to be in the goodie bag for our next tea and tarot. So very exciting. Okay, where were we? We were talking about insurance. Yes. Okay. So Baddies and Budgets. Yes. Oh my gosh. All right. So I was listening to her story, and she recently had a contract, and she ordered $150,000. I'm just gonna let that settle in while I have a sip. Okay. $150,000 worth of stuff she bought from her supplier. And then the supplier's owner suddenly passed away. And for whatever reason, there is not a lot of clarity around what is going to happen next. The company essentially is just closing. Everyone's gotten fired, and the company is just like not existing anymore. So she's got to go and buy that product all over again from another supplier, which is crazy to think about. Now, she didn't get into the details, but she wasn't freaking out and like rolling on the floor and throwing herself into a panic. So I have to imagine that she's got insurance coverage to protect her in the event that something like this happens. I'm sure she also has a sales contract in place that guarantees that this order gets filled or that she get a refund, etc. So these types of things are super important because the amount of money that you could lose or that could be impacted could potentially be huge, especially if you're a product maker with a physical location. Another type of like general property insurance to consider is renter's insurance. If you are operating your business out of your apartment, if you have a home, your homeowner's insurance would cover all the stuff that's in it, and you want to make sure that you update your insurance policy so that it covers the value of all of your products in your house. Make sure that the coverage is for enough that it would replace not only your personal things, but also your products that you've got in the garage or in the attic or in your workroom or what have you. If you live in an apartment, then renter's insurance is going to help you with that, including all of the products, your computers, your shipping materials, all of your inventory in your policy for your renter's insurance will help in the event that there's something that goes down at your home and your products get damaged or lost in some way. So there are all of these different variations, but some type of general insurance for your products and your space where your products are important. When it comes to service providers, we need insurance too. And the type of insurance that we would get are called in errors and omissions policies. And basically, this is an insurance policy that goes with you. It's not tied to the physical space that you are in. So it's great for service providers. And anywhere you go, it covers you in the event that you make an error or an omission. If you make a mistake, or you neglect to do something that ultimately causes someone some type of financial harm. Maybe they got injured and they have to pay medical bills, or they lost out on a bunch of money somehow. That type of a policy is going to cover you there. Errors and omissions policies don't tend to be very expensive because of the nature of them. They're not covering, $1 million properties or hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of inventory. They're pretty much just covering you for kind of routine mistakes that might happen. You will see folks like nail techs and things like that having these types of insurance policies. So if you give someone a fungus and they have to go get it treated and they want to sue you over it, you are covered and you ideally won't have to pay for that out of pocket. I recommend everyone that's a service provider have an errors and omissions policy. And it might seem kind of silly to do it as a tarot reader, but I think it's an important protection. I have seen stories of people that have done things like sold their homes or gambled and lost a bunch of money because of information that they got from a tarot reader or a psychic. Now, these are things that don't come up that often, and there are other ways to disclaim what you do, and we'll talk about that with waivers and terms and conditions. But you don't know what someone might do if they think that you are responsible for the loss that they sustained. And because these insurance policies are not that expensive, I think it's a really great idea to just have it, because it's one of those things where you can't go back and get it. If you are already being sued, if you're already, et cetera, then you might not be able to get any insurance coverage. Especially not for that issue. So having it in place is super important. All right. General insurance, errors and omissions. Product makers, service providers, we should all have some type of insurance coverage so that we don't have to pay out of pocket if we are found responsible for some issue that someone had. Okay. Now, let's talk about preventing these types of issues in the first place. Let's talk about how we can prevent people from going after us, and also to make sure that we're aware of some of the requirements we have, because in some cases, some of these waivers and things like that are requirements. So first, I want to talk to my medical providers, my massage therapists, and anybody that falls under the medical provider umbrella. There are two things that you want to be aware of, and there's more than the two that I'm going to cover here, but these are like the two most important. When you become certified as a massage therapist, when you become licensed as a nurse practitioner, a doctor of some kind, then you are walked through all of the different licensing and waivers and requirements that you are supposed to make sure that you take care of. But just to give you a heads up from the spiritual practitioner point of view, there's two things that you want to be aware of. The first are HIPAA requirements, and the second are releases, like waivers and releases. So HIPAA is an act that basically says that medical providers are required by law to keep their clients' information confidential, to not share them publicly, but to also take steps to prevent that information from being leaked into the general public. So it's not enough to just not talk about your client's information out loud. If you're not taking the proper precautions to keep their sensitive information safe, you could also be found in violation of this. So it's important to educate yourself on the HIPAA laws and make sure that your booking site is a site that is HIPAA compliant and has restrictions in place so that when people submit their private information, there are extra protections put around that information to prevent it from getting out into the general public. Okay. You're also going to want your clients to sign some type of a liability waiver. Now, the important thing to know about a waiver is that the law basically says no one can sign away their right to like safety and life, and no one can sign away their right to being protected under the law. So that means if someone signs a waiver that says, I will not hold this massage therapist liable for injuries I sustain on their table, if you were neglectful or if you physically assaulted that person, which is a crime, then the waiver would not protect you. Okay. No one can waive away the law. Right. So if the law says it's illegal to beat the crap out of somebody, then it's illegal to beat the crap out of somebody. And they cannot waive, basically say you can't be held liable for this. All right. But they do help when the area is fuzzy or when you are not necessarily being neglectful, not breaking a law or something like that. A waiver can limit the circumstances where somebody can come after you legally if they are injured in some way, physically or financially or whatever, after receiving your treatment. So those two types of steps that you have your client undergo before you give them any type of a service is going to help prevent lawsuits or issues if anything goes wrong or not as planned. Okay. For everybody else, one of the most important waivers that we don't necessarily think about is a release form. In this day and age of content creation and everything being content, it is not enough to just ask verbal permission from your customers or clients about reusing their name, their likeness, clips of their sessions, things like that, in your content or for promotional purposes. It's nice. That's definitely a first step. And it could help to prevent any issues. Hopefully that person remembers that they said, yeah, sure, you could use that footage, but they might not remember that, or they might feel like they were asked at the wrong time. They might have felt pressured to say, yeah, it's fine if you ask them during the session. Or they just might change their mind. 3 years later, you're still using clips of a session they had with you, and they might feel like, you know what, I don't want you to keep using that clip of me. So getting it in writing in some way is a much better step to take. It doesn't have to be complicated. This doesn't have to be extensive. You don't need someone filling out, long forms or anything like that. What I like to do is I like to include it in my booking system. There are some questions that you answer whenever you book a session with me, whether it's a tarot, Reiki session, a one-on-one coaching session, whatever it is. There are going to be some questions for me to be able to best serve you. And one of the last questions that I always ask is, are you giving me consent to record this session? That's first. And then, are you giving me the okay to use that recording for training or promotional purposes? So could I use a clip of that to teach the next tarot reader how to do a reading? Could I use a clip of that in a class? Could I use that clip on my social media to promote my services, etc.? I ask those two questions. And that can really be enough right there. It doesn't have to be lengthy. If you are recording a podcast on your YouTube channel, or you have somebody going live with you, you're going to want to put in some type of an agreement some type of a waiver about releasing their name, their likeness, and the content of that conversation to use it, etc., so that everybody's clear. We talked about contracts, and we talked about this a little bit in the weekly review where we talked about contracts. So you can definitely go back and learn more about contracts. But this doesn't have to be a part of a full contract. This can just be what's called a waiver, which is just sort of like a release. It's usually shorter, very straight to the point, and the terms of those waivers are really up to you, as long as you're not, like I said, asking anybody to waive away their right to like just general legal protection. It's not going to cover you if you do something illegal with someone's with a clip of someone's session or an episode of your podcast. But it's a good idea to have folks be clear and understand that you're going to be using that footage, that you're going to maybe use it for promotion or for training, whatever it is that you're planning on doing with that footage. And it's also a good idea to outline, especially for like live streams and podcast episodes and things like that, content, how long you are going to be using that material for. So that people have an idea of whether or not you plan on using it forever. And if so, that they're aware of that and they, say okay to that, so that years down the line, it is not possible for them to come back and say, hey, I never gave you permission for that, or I didn't know that you were going to still be using it 10 years later. Okay. Another waiver is a general liability waiver. These are somewhat useful because, like I said, if you are being negligent, if you are doing something that's against the law, then the waiver is not going to prevent action being taken against you. But what it does, I think what waivers really do more than anything is that they put the other person on notice about your intention and about the potential risks of getting your service or working with you. I think that's really what waivers do the most. And when your customer or client is aware of any risks and knows that they have been informed in writing of that ahead of time, then what it does is it just minimizes the chances that that person is going to go and try to take some type of legal action against you, because they were informed, they were aware, they knew that they were taking on that risk themselves. They knew that there was a possibility that they might not be able to get some type of legal recourse. And so that just minimizes and prevents the possibility of any issue. If someone is injured or they sustain a loss because of something that you did and they weren't aware that that was a possibility, that that could happen, that's just going to increase the chances that they're going to feel that they were taken advantage of, that something potentially criminal or negligent happened, and that's going to increase the chances that they're going to go and arm themselves maybe with an attorney and start asking questions about how they can recuperate from their losses. So just general liability waivers when you're not sure about anything more specific is a good idea to have in place. And again, they don't have to be complicated side documents. They can be language that you put into your booking system or something like that. Now, how do we put these things into our booking system? That brings me to terms and conditions. And we all literally agree to thousands of terms and conditions all the time. And we generally don't read them, which is on us. Okay. I'm a law school dropout, you guys know. And I remember being in class and having my professor being like, I am a contracts attorney, and I have never read the terms and conditions of my cell phone. Like, we just don't do it. Even those of us who are educated and know how important it is to know your rights, know what you're signing away, know what you're agreeing to, we still don't do it. But at the end of the day, even if someone doesn't read the terms and conditions, they are still valid and they still apply as long as they agreed to them. So when it comes to general liability waivers or disclaimers, putting them into the terms and conditions on your booking site or on your website is a very good idea. Oftentimes, when you create like a boilerplate website or you create an account on a booking site, they will have their own terms and conditions, and those are terms and conditions that are beneficial to those platforms. They are not beneficial for you per se. So those are terms and conditions that protect those platforms. If one of your customers or clients has an issue and wants to sue the platform for having you on there in the first place, sue the platform for letting you put up your website, sue the platform for, charges on their account, their credit card, what have you. So those terms and conditions are going to be geared towards protecting the platforms. And a mistake that we as spiritual practitioners make is to assume that those terms and conditions are protecting us. They are not. So it's important that you create your own set of terms and conditions that are an agreement between you and your customer or you and your client. If you're a product seller, this might look like exchange and refund policies that are listed on the listing description or on the person's receipt, somewhere where they can see what they have agreed to and what the policies and practices are for a proper exchange or proper refund, etc. These might also look like privacy policies in terms of what types of information you are sharing or keeping from your customers. So if you have folks signing up for your mailing list or they're putting their credit card in to purchase items, it is important that you have terms and conditions there that clearly state what is going to happen with that information. Are you going to be selling that information to a third party? Are you going to be using it for other purposes? Are you going to be taking their information and signing them up for something? It's very important that you detail that so people know where their data is going. And then the big one for my tarot readers is basically terms and conditions that cover you for readings and what comes up in a reading. And I always encourage people to do this regardless of the types of readings that they do, but especially if you are planning on making like public content or doing readings, even if it's not public, honestly, but definitely if it's public, if you're going to be making content around celebrities or public figures, politicians, local, business owners, like, etc. Because you could find yourself in a situation where you get sued for defamation if you say something about someone that they allege is not true and that causes harm to their reputation or to their business. Okay, so that's really important. If you go into a local business and you see a rat running around while you have lunch, you can go and leave a million reviews all over the world because that was your firsthand experience. That is totally within your right to tell everybody that that restaurant has rats. But if you see in a tarot reading that your local restaurant owner is like engaging in fraud or something like that, and you share that publicly, that could hurt that person's reputation. They could argue that that cost them money and they could sue you for defamation. So a way to protect yourself in these circumstances is to make sure that on your videos, on your booking site, on your website, that there is a disclaimer that your readings are for entertainment purposes only. Okay. And I know that that might feel a little bit like frustrating. As readers, we take what we do seriously. We do not consider it entertainment per se. And we don't want people to treat us that way or think of us that way. But it is much more important to be safe and to protect yourself from being, anyone going after you. I think that your community, your followers, the people that value you are going to understand why you have that there. And if you feel like they won't, then you can explain it. You can let them know. I have seen plenty of tarot readers address why they have that disclaimer on their website or on their readings, etc., in order to protect themselves in the event that something is said that, somebody who has the means to litigate over it doesn't appreciate being said publicly. So you definitely want to have that in place. For my healers, especially my energy healers, the somatic healers out there, you would want to have a similar disclaimer, but rather than saying that your services are for entertainment, you would say that your services are a reflection of your religious practices. And the reason why you want to do that is because you don't want to allege that you are providing medical services if you are not, because rendering medical services without the proper certifications, licenses, etc., is definitely going to land you in hot water. So you want to make sure people understand that while your services might contribute to some type of physical healing or might alleviate a medical problem or some type of an ailment, that you are not delivering medical services by like the standard definition of what that is, but that instead the ability that you have to heal someone, make someone feel better, solve a problem in their physical body comes from your religious training, your religious background. And why you want to do that and why you want to phrase it that way is because religious practices are protected under the Constitution. You can practice your religion freely. And if somebody comes to, you, like if I go to church and I'm like, I didn't get saved or my life didn't get better, I can't sue the church. So you want to give yourself that same type of protection. And if you carry yourself as a medical professional and you use that type of language, then you are open to malpractice the same way a medical professional is. If you instead make clear that your abilities and your services are coming from a religious place and are a part of your religious practices, then you have greater protections over what happens in those sessions, and greater protections over someone who maybe doesn't get the result that they had hoped for. Okay, so I pray you were all taking notes. That was a lot of information, but it's all super, super important. And of course, if you ever want to just talk to me about it, if you're a bunker member, one of the many benefits of being in the bunker is you can just at me in the comments and ask a question. So you get to pick my brain and get access to the information that I have. You also know by now that we've got some incredibly intelligent, talented professionals in the bunker. We've got attorneys and bookkeepers and all kinds of experts. So you can also drop a line and ask for insight from the folks that are in the bunker. It's a really dope group of witchpreneurs in there. And of course, you can always set up a one-to-one if you've got a personal situation that you would like to talk to me about. The links to all of that will be in the description as well. So I want to invite every single one of you to get into the bunker right now. I'm going to head into the Q&A so that the bunker witches in the room can ask me questions about these topics. That's another one of the benefits of being in the bunker. Not only do you have this great community of spiritual entrepreneurs that you can connect with, resources that you have access to, weekly group coaching sessions. Each of our group coaching session also ends with a Q&A. So if you have follow-up questions from everything I just shared with you today, I'm going to answer them right now. So joining the bunker is free for the first 7 days. I definitely encourage you to enroll, but don't just enroll and forget about it, because why? Enroll and log in. Introduce yourself in the roster. Look around at all the resources. Take whatever is useful for you. Put the group coaching sessions on your calendar and actively participate in this group. If you are a spiritual entrepreneur who claims that you need a business coach, that you need guidance, you need membership, and you need mentorship and community, and cost is what's stopping you from doing that, then this is the most cost-effective way to get access to all of that in one convenient space. So definitely take advantage of it. And I look forward to seeing all of you in the bunker and the rest of you in my next video. All right, witches, have a beautiful rest of the day. Blessed be.